righteous have fallen, many is we're calling.
Shalom and welcome. You're listening to Awas Community Radio. My name is Esther, and today on our show as a guest we have Rabbi Rickman, who teaches in King David High School. The topic I've chosen today is a sad time in Jewish history known as the 9 days. Thank you, Rabbi Rickman, for coming in to talk to my listeners. Please can you explain to my listeners what the 9 days is all about?
The 9 days are the final 9 days of a 3-week period that began almost 3 weeks ago today. And it commemorates number of sad events in Jewish history, primarily the destructions of both temples that stood in Jerusalem. The final 9 days of that period, the feelings are intensified, the mourning, the sadness is intensified as we build up to the climax of this 3-week period, which is the fast day itself at the end of the 9-day period.
Are there any restrictions in the 9 days?
Jewish communities throughout the world have developed a number of restrictions, and some are culturally different from one another, but primarily the restrictions are designed to make us feel the loss of the temple. So we don't eat meat and don't drink wine during this period, both of which were features of temple services, the meat, the sacrifices, and the wine that was used throughout temple worship. So not eating meat or drinking wine allows us to feel that loss in a more obvious way. No hair cutting, no shaving of facial hair for men, so that's why I look so scruffy at the moment. It's meant to reduce our comfort, not washing for pleasure, so no long luxurious showers. So the rabbis put together a number of restrictions which were designed to make us feel less comfortable, less full of pleasure in our lives, in order to help us feel the loss of the temples and the impact on the Jewish world.
Is there also restrictions like, for example, going swimming and doing leisure activities like that?
So there is the tradition that this time of the year, because it straddles various tragedies in Jewish history, there's negative energy or negativity, spiritual negativity, so to avoid doing things that might be dangerous. So swimming was highlighted as one example of any activities that might be dangerous, but it's the idea of avoiding things that might bring you into danger because it's seen as a negative time where God's judgment is more severe and harsh at this time of the year. So to avoid things that might bring you into a situation where God might need to judge you and to avoid any particular danger.
Does that include social activities?
So some have the tradition of avoiding social activities. There are no weddings, no fun activities at the moment, and that's again part of creating the atmosphere of sadness and mourning and loss. So parties and live music and celebrations don't take place during this time of the year.
Thank you. So can you just explain to me, tomorrow is the last day of the 9 days. This is known as Tisha B'Av, the Black Fast. Can you explain why it is called the fast, and why do we have the fast at the end of the 9th day?
So tomorrow, the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av, is traditionally understood to be the day on which both the first and the second temples were destroyed, and on the day in which many other tragedies befell the Jewish people throughout our long history. In order to connect with that day and with that loss and with that emptiness, we fast. I think when we feel hungry tomorrow and you think, I'm feeling empty of food, we're meant to then connect that physical emptiness with a spiritual emptiness, with a national emptiness of loss of sovereignty in the temples and pogroms and massacres that took place on this date throughout our history. The term the Black Fast is an interesting one. I haven't seen it brought down very often, but I guess if you look at the different fast days within our Jewish calendar, sometimes we fast for repentance and to bring us closer to God. And that could be a white fast, a sort of cleansing and a purification process. And I imagine those that came up with the idea of the black fast see it as a day where we're not eating because we're too sad. The tragedies are so intense that we don't eat because I can't bring myself to eat because of my sadness and my doom and my gloom that I feel on this day. It's almost a 25-hour fast. It's a very long day, no eating and no drinking. And as well as many other restrictions on the day. Many of those restrictions parallel the types of laws that Judaism has when you lose, God forbid, you lose a loved one. So half of the day we're not permitted to sit on a high chair, we sit on the floor like you would do if you were mourning, God forbid, for a parent or a child. We don't greet each other with good morning and with hellos because it's not a day where it's a good day or a happy day. So it's a pretty sad, it is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar.
How long does the fast last for?
The fast lasts for almost 25 hours. It begins tonight, Monday, at 6 minutes past 9 and terminates Tuesday night at about 9:58, and that's no eating and no drinking for that entire period.
Can you tell me, are there any activities for children and adults to be entertained or to allow the day to go smoothly tomorrow that you know of?
So most communities will host speakers who will try and help modern Jews to relate to a tragedy that dates back 2,000 years. It's very hard to feel you lost something that you never saw in your own life. So there'll be various lectures going on. Often they will show films that will focus on moral and ethical behavior, because the rabbis suggest that the temples were destroyed, the second temple was destroyed because of hatred between one and the other. And so we take the day as an opportunity to try and build positive relationships between people, as well as we're very still privileged in our life today to be able to listen to Holocaust survivors. So very often communities will host men and women who survived the Holocaust, and it will be a day to listen to their tragic stories. And in North Manchester, one of the communities is hosting a Holocaust survivor. And all over the world, if people are fortunate enough to live with those that survived the death camps and survived those horrible years, they will be brought in to speak again, to speak about hatred and to speak about the dangers when societies don't get on together, when societies fall apart, and to really press forward the message that we need to love ourselves and then really learn to love everyone else. And when the love broke down, especially within the Holocaust years, there was a destruction that's never been seen again, thank God, but it's horrendous. And so that's the message that the Holocaust survivors will be promoting during the fast tomorrow.
Is there any message you can relate to my listeners who may be fasting tonight and tomorrow to help them strengthen the day?
I think the more we understand what we have lost, the easier it is to fast. When you don't see why we're fasting, that's always much more difficult. So to understand that our tradition tells us that blessings were brought into the world from the temples, was praying at the temple. The temple was a place of prayer for the Jewish people, but also King Solomon said in the Bible, it should be a house of prayer for everybody. So everybody had a place to pray to God in this holy site. And if we recognize what it means not to have it, to be distant from God, to have an emptiness. So as we're fasting, as those pangs of hunger pangs grip you, and as you're feeling more and more famished and weak and dizzy, not to make that the focus of the day, but to contemplate why you're hungry and to think about what we've lost and why we've lost it, and to turn our attention to how we can build more positive relationships with people, positive feelings within our community, the Jewish community. Every community has its own problems of infighting. We need to first make peace with ourselves, and then when we succeed, please God, to make peace with ourselves, to make peace with people outside of our community, and then that peace to the whole world. So there's an opportunity tomorrow to really think of positive thoughts and to do something very, very positive, and then to use that positivity, not to lose it as you're tucking into your food at 10 o'clock tomorrow night, thinking, I want to just fill my stomach, not to forget all those positive thoughts, and then to use that in the weeks and the months ahead to build those positive relationships.
Thank you so much for coming to explain to my listeners what tomorrow's fast is all about. I would like to wish you an easy fast, and thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Cry.